There are many questions about what's next for Dune Awakening, from small balance tweaks to huge expansions and features. Well, the team behind the game took to Reddit yesterday for an AMA where they answered many of those questions. To save you the pains of scrolling a very long and complicated Reddit thread, I've got all the answers here. No time to waste, let's get into it. Question 1. Are there plans on adding repeatable or new contracts every Coriolis storm, or are we meant to rely on the Lansraad tasks? Joel answered that there are indeed plans to add new contracts across the board, and the Lansraad itself is supposed to involve more contracts in order to reveal house tasks, as well as contracts that lead into the deep desert. For all you contract enthusiasts though, more is coming. Question 2. Will the team be looking at name changes for easier management of storage containers? Scott comes in with this answer, saying it's on the list of changes they want to make to improve base and resource management. There's no timeline of when it's coming yet, but it is coming. Scott also answered a related question on this one, saying vehicle naming is also in the works, so that if you have multiple of the same vehicle, you can accurately select the correct one when moving from vehicle to chest in the interface. Question 3, and one for the solo players. Will the team change the Lansraad so players can continue to contribute after a task has been claimed? Joel says the team currently plans to allow contributions to stack week after week, so small groups and solos can work towards the larger rewards over time, alongside adding more tiers of rewards. Sounds like this means all the unique cosmetics locked behind the Lansraad will end up obtainable even for inefficient solo players, so long as you stick at it. Question 4, can you please add a deposit all water option? Ole replied to this and said yes, a deposit all water option is coming. Question 5, what quality of life plans are in the works, and what are the PvE plans for the near future? Scott answered this one, saying they have an update and testing right now with a lot of quality of life updates, aiming for early July. It will become publicly testable, at which point they'll release patch notes which contain a lot of changes. PvE plans for the future are simple. Each major free update will contain new story content and PvE content, which will release at the same time as the premium DLCs. The team is aiming for one of these updates every 3 to 4 months. Question 6 is a simple one. Will we ever be able to stack storage boxes? Ole replied, saying it is already possible using half walls to create shelves, but the team are looking into ways to improve quality of life, and box stacking is on that list. Question 7 for the builders. Are the team planning to make building easier, namely by being able to replace one floor tile with another without having to move things around like it was in Conan Exiles? Ole answered, saying they are already planning to add that option. Funnily enough, I've got a video coming about things the building system needs, and that one is in there, so direct replacement is confirmed. Question 8. Are the team planning to showcase a roadmap of what's coming soon? Camille replied, saying they're intending to keep players in the loop of what's next and to share mid and long term plans soon, though this may not take the form of the usual static roadmap asset. Question 9. Can we get a deep desert zone for ground combat only? Also, can we get more dungeons in the deep desert with targeted loot systems? Joel replies, saying they don't plan on adding ground combat only zones, but they are not happy with the current balance of vehicle and on-foot combat, to which they have multiple changes planned and in the pipeline. The team will add more dungeons to the deep desert, but no targeted loot systems, as it goes entirely against the re-exploration design of the zone. Question 10. Does the team plan to add daily and weekly PvE contracts? Scott replies, saying the Landsraad is designed for weekly content, but they know the feedback about it not being satisfactory and being too hard for solos. Improvements the team are planning will make sure that anyone can interact with the Landsraad and get rewarded. Furthermore, they're releasing more PvE content each major update and will have more dynamic encounters around the map. Question 11. Will we be able to take a corpse from storage and put it straight into a death still without having to manually carry it? Joel chimes in on this one, saying the carrying of the corpse suits the ritualistic design, and fundamentally there is a core difference between Fremen and Chome tech, and corpses are not compatible with circuits, so basically no. Question 12 is a really interesting one. Is there going to be a PvE option to farm endgame materials, or will it always be gated behind PvP? Scott answers, saying the Lansraad is designed as a PvE endgame and they'll adjust it until both they and us are happy, and both solos and guilds are satisfied. In addition, the team will have new PvE maps and content in the future, offering alternative ways to progress past the gear available in Haga Basin, so they will be adding new PvE maps. If it's on the same quality level as Haga Basin, that would be pretty crazy. Also, if you're finding my coverage helpful, consider supporting the channel over on Patreon, where you can get wallpapers, see videos early and more, or join as a free member to get sneak peeks. Get 30% off your first month with code DUNE30 at checkout, offer valid until the 30th of June 2025, link in the description. Back to the Q&A. Question 13. Right now, respecking your character seems to remove the starting skill but doesn't refund the point, so if you respec at level 150, you end up with 149 skill points. The user asks if this is a bug, as it hasn't been added to the known issues page. Camille and Scott answered this. Scott confirmed it is a bug and will be fixed. Camille encouraged players to report any bugs they find, no matter how small or if it's already on the list, as the data helps to assess scale and severity. Question 14. Will there ever be boss fights, raids or other activities in a similar vein? Ole answers this one, saying they will be evolving the PvE content over time, including adding boss encounters as part of future dungeons. Question 15. Could the developers comment definitively on the case of people blocking roads, quest entrances, etc. with their buildings? To which extent is it supposed to be allowed, when should it be reported, and so on? Scott replies to this one, saying it's a difficult issue. They don't want to add build blockers all over the map, but have also tried to ensure there's always at least one viable path to access trade posts, faction bases and so on. If anything vital has been missed though, do let the devs know. Question 16. Are there any plans to expand the map in the future? Ole answers, saying they plan to expand the game with additional maps accessible through the Overland map. Dune has a lot of interesting locations, so they'll be using that to build on top of the foundation they have. Question 17. Will there be any kind of in-game cosmetics store? Camille answers this one, saying they currently do not have any plans to add an in-game cosmetics store, and links the blog where Joel discussed the business model before launch. Question 18 is a bit of a mega question with lots of things all in one. It asks about improving PvP, server consolidation, bugs with the class quests, in-game notification time localization, increasing party size or removing guild-friendly fire, more granular map features, a dynamic compass, player distinction in battles, more visible guild tags, dialogue skipping, and removing the overland map. Joel answers with a brief response to each point. Firstly, they are planning to improve PvP, specifically around respawn time and revives. They won't be reducing the size of the deep desert, but they do have improvements planned. They're still gathering data at the moment and finding the right things to address. Server consolidation will happen when necessary. Notification improvements are in the works, as are fixes to the class quests. Party size and friendly fire will remain. They'll look into granular map filters. The compass will remain as will the distinction between players in battles. They will not add an option to skip dialogue, nor will they be removing the overland map. Question 19. Can it be made easier for players to reach the bank and exchange, and will there be any kind of vehicle insurance in the future? Another user also replies to this initial question, saying they like the vehicle building, but some parts are hard to interact with. Scott replies to both. To the original poster, he says they'll be looking at convenience, but actually travelling to the social areas is important. The team are also looking at ways to help mitigate vehicle loss in certain scenarios, but the worm will always be a costly death. He then replies to the second commenter, saying the team are looking at improving a few of the vehicles that are hard to interact with. Question 20. Are there any plans to implement faction-based warfare? Ole answers this one, saying the deep desert will always be PvP free-for-all, but they might consider adding other locations for faction war. Question 21. Do the team plan to enable character transfer to different servers, including skipping the story and retaining player level? Villar answers, saying full visiting with building rights between sietches is coming soon. Between worlds will likely be in the future, but not in the short term. Question 22. Are there any plans for tools like an elevator? Scott replies, saying they had plans for Suspenser elevators, but it had to get cut for launch, and he'll check with the building team if it's something they can re-add in the future. Question 23. Are there any plans for procedural or radiant contracts? Ole says it's not in current plans, but they're always looking at viable options so long as it fits the game. Question 24. How does the team plan on fixing the PvP balance, especially in the context of scout ornithopters and their offensive capabilities? Villar answers, saying they're considering the following changes. Rocket pods on a scout orni will reduce manoeuvrability and max speed, the rockets will cost more heat to fire, and thrusters will be buffed to provide a bonus to maximum speed even whilst gliding. These are all things under consideration to fix the scout ornithopter imbalance. Question 25. Can we expect further improvements to the social aspect, towns, cities, emotes, costumes, and so on? Ole says they will keep adding to the social features, there are more emotes and costumes on the way already, and social hubs will keep evolving. Question 26. Will more options be given to solo players in the desert, being able to hide in sand like the Fremen, or removing rockets from the Scout Orni? Villiar says the Fremen secrets are known only to the Fremen, and that will be explained more in the future. The Scout-Thopter will be adjusted to be more manoeuvrable when spec'd for that. Question 27, will the devs add an option for dueling? And Villiar says yes, they are planning that. Question 28 asks why the final trial of Arkle isn't instanced, and Ole answers, saying it's mostly due to technical and time limits, and they'll look at improving it in the future. Question 29, are the devs entertaining the idea of a weaponless Scout Ornithopter? Villiar says they don't plan to remove rocket pods from the Scout yet, but intend to make the Assault Ornithopter the better option for combat. Question 30, are there any plans to add sand walking? Villiar replies and says exactly this, we will do walking without rhythm. Question 31, a lot of PvE players feel discouraged by the current endgame setup. Are there any considerations to adjust this or make endgame resources available without PvP? Villiar says they are working on the Lansraad to make it better for PvE players, and the Deep Desert will remain as it is today. Question 32, will the team ever add a PvE Deep Desert? Villiar says there are no plans for it yet, but there will be new PvE areas. Question 33, is the planned third faction House Corrino? Joel confirms it is, in fact, not House Corrino. Question 34, a pretty interesting one, can we dual wield weapons in the future? And Villiar answers yes, it's planned, but you won't be able to mix and match weapons, so no dagger and sword combo, presumably two of the same weapons. Question 35, can we get a top-down building view? Villiar says the team currently have no plans for it. Question 36, do the team plan to add farming-ish features like a greenhouse from the Ecolabs? Villiar says maybe one day, but not in the near future. Question 37, are there any plans to make the endgame more solo-friendly? Scott replies, saying they'll be improving the Landsraad and Deep Desert for solo players, including adding additional content, more info in the future. Question 38, are there any plans to add a trade board to the trading posts, not for listing but for price checking? Scott says they're looking at several options and that is one of them, no ETA on it though. Question 39 asserts that the Lansraad is broken and dominated by large guilds, so solo and small guilds can't even interact, and is often a complete blowout for one faction. Joel replies saying they're balancing the Lansraad, but on servers dominated by a single faction, the game has auto-balancing features that will kick in, and it has only been 2 weeks since launch. Additionally, the third faction will change the entire dynamic of the Lansraad. Question 40, will other enemy types be added, specifically non-humans? Villiar said the team are considering more enemy types long term. Question 41, are there any plans to rebalance the storage system, as using both weight and volume feels unnecessary? Villiar replied that there are no plans to change it, as it gives them more balancing options. Question 42, will the team add hotkeys for changing vehicle seats? Scott said yes, it's planned for July or August. Question 43, are there plans to adjust how your character looks after character creation? Scott answered that yes, this is planned for a future update and work has already begun on it. Question 44 includes a slight story spoiler, and then asks when we get the next part of the main story. Scott replies, saying that the blame falls on him as he had to force Joel to cut the last third so they could actually launch the game on time. Act 3 will be released over the next year, with new content added free with every DLC release. Question 45, will there be more building sets, cosmetics and so on added in the game? Camille answers yes, they have a lot planned and in the pipeline. Question 46, are there any plans to further improve the comeback after a break mechanics for solo players? Ole answers, saying the game as of right now supports a break of almost 4 weeks if your base is fully fueled with the endgame generators. In the future, the team are looking at mechanics to support an easier recovery for extended breaks. Question 47, are the team planning faction chat? Villiar answers, saying they'll look into it. Question 48, are there any plans to increase vehicle rendering distance in the Deep Desert? Camille says it's something the team are already investigating. Question 49, are there any plans to add different builds or new trainers in the future? Scott answers, saying yes, they're planning new archetypes and trainers with development on the next one starting soon. Question 50, what are the team's thoughts on adding missions to raid low-travelling ships, including Sardaukar? Joel answered, saying it's an interesting idea and they'll consider it. Question 51, is there a plan to improve the current circuit system for storage containers? The poster gives some examples about redirecting water or having more granular control. Joel said they will certainly look into it. Question 52 includes some story spoilers, so again I'll leave that out, but also asks about features like searching all containers by item name and quickly unloading from vehicles. Ole answers saying search is planned and quick unload is under consideration. Question 53 asks about a build all button. Another thing that I also included in that future video that I mentioned earlier, Viljar said build all is not currently planned as it would invalidate co-op base building. Question 54, why can multiple people not travel to the deep desert inside of a single assault ornithopter? Viljar says it's a technical reason, but they are looking into solutions. Question 55, what stops the team from allowing players to self-host servers? Scott replies saying they don't have a simple way to package the complex server architecture for players. In addition, releasing server binaries make it easier for cheaters to exploit the game, so both would need to be addressed before self-hosting can be a thing. It also requires a lot of hardware. If the map was like Conan Exiles, it would have launched with the standalone version, but right now it would require a small group of people that can set up, operate and have the correct hardware to run said servers. Last of all, question 56 is quite a blunt one about the Deep Desert, asking if they intended the endgame zone to be an extremely niche hardcore PvP experience and if they plan on adding a PvE endgame zone. Joel replies, firstly saying that he sees people are talking about the endgame but never mention the Lansraad, which tells him that the team have failed to convey how important the Lansraad should be to PvE players and they will work to refine it. Furthermore, he says that whilst PvE content is expensive and time consuming to produce, more of it will continue to be added to the game, whereas PvP is kind of its own loop. The Deep Desert will always remain as the PvP space of the game, but his reply seems to say that the team will add more to PvE, while PvP can be a bit more self-sustaining. And there we have it, all of the important questions from Funcom's recent Dune Awakening Reddit Q&A. There were a fair few more questions than I've included here, some were repeats of ones we already covered, and others were just narrative and design questions that didn't really give any information about the future of the game. Despite that, there's some good info here, and the new PvE maps sound really interesting. I'm excited to hear more about that, though I wouldn't imagine we'll hear about that for a little while. Anyway, this has been a long one and that will wrap us up for today. Thanks for watching, I'll be covering Dune right here on this channel alongside Conan Exiles, so make sure you subscribe to get the best of both Arrakis and Hyboria. A massive thanks to our wonderful esteemed coffee cultists for continuing to support the channel over on Patreon. If you want to support the channel here on YouTube and get some exclusive perks, take a look at the new channel memberships available by clicking join just below this video. Take care, and I'll see you soon.